Well, hello, 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 and welcome. Guess what? It's Wednesday night. And what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, we're going to talk about a topic that almost every woman can relate to, and it has several names. Tonight, we're going to talk about the midlife mojo type of talk. But it could be a woman in her second act, her second chapter, and how many other names are there? There are millions of them. But our guest tonight is going to share a lot of good, the keyword, buzzword is juicy information that you're going to enjoy. You're going to be educated, entertained, and inspired, hopefully. I am Joy Ruffin, signature style specialist and professional speaker, creator of Leading Ladies, Leaving Legacies. And every week, every Wednesday night at 7 p.m., I bring to you a leading lady who's going to share with you what her work is all about, why she does the work that she's doing and loves it so much. So bear in mind that every week you're going to get a lot of good tips and tools that will benefit you. Business women, women in leadership hire me to amp up their wow factor because they are struggling with styling themselves and spending way too much money. So, one of the things that we're going to talk about towards the end of our show tonight is style. What is your style, your signature style? But way before that, we're going to talk with our leading lady tonight, and I'm going to bring her up. I don't do the bio and all that stuff anymore. I just bring her up and we chat and we talk about all the possibilities. So I want you to help me to say hello to Jill. Jill, hello and welcome. Welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to speak tonight, for sure.
Well, I'm excited to have you here because you and I are doing the same type of work in a different arena. We're dancing, but it's all connected. So tell us about your work, the work that you do now, and why you're doing the work that you do now.
Sure. Like you're right, we are kind of on two sides of the same coin. You work from sort of the outside in. And when you put someone in a good pair of jeans, they feel more confident. And I work on balancing women's bodies from the inside, working through with intermittent fasting, with healthy eating, with exercise, with essential oils, helping a woman to kind of regain her hormonal balance, especially during these midlife years when everything is just going crazy. And when she feels better inside of her body, that comes out in so many different ways. It comes out in feeling more in control, more energized, and she just kind of wants to share herself with the world. And I know this personally from my own transformation, seeing how that happened. And it's been just wonderful. I myself had a lot of issues that I was struggling with in my mid 40s, as a lot of women do.
That's what I wanted to speak to because what we're
Yeah.
talking about is that midlife mojo type of transition from one body, mindset, spirit, essence to another. And Jill, for so many women, it's terrifying. So, what you're doing is helping to alleviate that and telling women, sharing with women, educating women to this can be one of the most powerful, potent times of your life. Yes?
1,000,000% on that one, without a doubt. That's kind of what the whole mojo thing is. And you're right when you use the word terrified. I've had more than, one client come to me saying she went to her doctor scared that she was actually had something serious wrong with her. And all it was were these hormonal changes and she didn't know. So being able to educate women on what's going on with their bodies so that they can feel comfortable and then helping them achieve, both inside and out what they want in life is just something that is exciting for me.
I think so. And the next question, you alluded to it somewhat, but what brought you to this work? Because usually, here's a quote that I use all the time. I'm repetitive, Jill, in almost
That's
everything that I
that's
do.
good.
But there is a saying that aging is inevitable, growing old is optional. So tell me, what brought you to do the work that you're doing now?
Well, that's exactly it. I myself had kind of felt a little bit marginalized when I was going through my own issues. I went to my doctor. He kind of sent me home with no help. I didn't really know what was kind of out there. And so, being able to find a way to reach women. When I started looking and doing my own research and writing my books and finding these natural solutions, knowing that I had this answer, that women were scared, they didn't know where to turn, and that I could offer it, was huge for me. And the word that so many women use when I kind of in the beginning started this, asking how they felt, was the word invisible. And that word just, crushes me to know that women feel that way.
Me too. Me too. And you mentioned a word there that I
Mhm.
want to piggyback and speak to a wee bit, and
Yes.
that's natural,
Hmm.
holistic, natural kind of ways. Because when I had my hysterectomy many moons ago, they
Hmm.
wanted to put me on, I can't think of the name of it now, Jill. I think it was premium something,
Hmm.
premium,
Yes.
premia, something
Yep.
like that.
Premarin.
And
Yep.
something in my psychic, something in my soul, the essence of me said, no, don't take that. And I didn't. And I'm so grateful that I didn't. But what brought you again to the natural avenue of helping women to use natural products to take the body through its natural transition?
That's good, because especially in the midlife years, there are a lot of unnatural ways that people do.
Yes.
There's a lot of things. And so, I have always been kind of a natural girl since my 20s, which is ironic
Mm.
because I grew up with a family of pharmacists and to this day, people who love their doctors. And I always just sought out natural ways my whole life. And so, eating and exercise kind of just was a natural part. And then about 6 years ago, essential oils came onto my radar, and I integrated them into my world. And so, I just feel like our bodies are perfectly made. We are perfectly made. Nature, right? Our bodies are made to work with nature. And so if we just listen to what nature is guiding us and listen to our bodies, we
Yes.
can find that balance.
I love the way you put
Mhm,
that because it's so true. And I, somewhat the same mindset, I always
mhm,
knew, don't ask me how, it's not important, that the body was a temple and
mhm,
it was to be praised and cherished and cared for. And yet, to me, always, not even knowing back in the day, I use the words all the time, old fashioned, old school, back in the day, because
yeah.
that's me and I'm happy, but I also like the new. But I knew that there was something about the natural, holistic way of taking care of the body that was vital. And you always had that too.
I
What do you?
did. And it's, I think the rest of the world is catching on too. I think that, and that's what I have noticed is definitely I've been working with women now for over 15 years in the health and wellness field. And it was a lot harder early on to get them to adopt these kind of things. They couldn't find the foods in the grocery stores, the things like that. And so now, our world, I think people are starting to question all that's going around us. We're not a well world, and they're starting to question why, and they're looking for, what can I do that's natural?
Oh, you're so on point. You're
Yeah.
so on
Yeah.
point. And this pandemic that we're all involved with, this
Hmm.
crises, being
Yes.
confined, sequestered, and locked in, it's making many of us, you, myself, and others,
Hmm.
go probe deep in to pull up all the best that's within us. And that involves, and you're so right, more than ever, the doctor back in my day, they were like gods, and they
Hmm.
still are. But
Hmm.
you and I know that there are so many other means and ways that you can go to get to the best self that you can be. What is the number one area that you find women have the most issues with when it comes to that midlife transition?
Honestly, and it's funny you ask that, because I actually asked that question in a poll on my site a few months ago in my group. What would be the number one thing? And for every single, and I was like, is it your sex life, your weight, your relationships, your career, whatever? And for I mean, overwhelmingly, it was their weight, and as that midlife transition, and that was an issue because so many women, like myself, I had been at my goal weight for almost 15 years, and in a 16-month period, I put on 20 pounds, and I
Uh-huh.
didn't know how to get it off. And so we all know, that weight, I mean, women, it just affects everything in their life. If they don't feel good in their skin, then they don't feel good in their life, and it really affects every other area. And they all said, if I could get that in control, then I'd dress better, I'd have better sex, I'd have, all these things. And if they just could get so that's definitely, I would say, unfortunately, the number one thing, but also great that there are solutions for that.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm a little surprised to hear that it's weight, and yet maybe not so, because
Mhm.
there's so many other variables involved that
I'm
I would
telling you.
think. But yet we have been conditioned, and we're all somewhat in that bubble of that Hollywood runway model type of
Mhm.
physique, that body, and yet everybody is beautiful. I'm hoping to help people, women, to find that, and you're doing it in another way. So I think it's great.
I
But
love it. We complement each other beautifully.
I think so too. That yo-yo weight, up and down, up and down, up and down. I think we've all done it, right? And you said
Right.
40 pounds. For me, it was like 60 pounds. I turned around, I went by the mirror, and I said, "Who the heck is that?" It was
And Joy,
me.
when we go up and down like that, that
Yes.
does something to us internally. Forget about the whole physical aspect that it does. Then we go up and down. There's a lot of physical things that happen, but mentally, what it does to women is so derailing. And so I always say, yes, I teach about weight loss, but I don't even really like to teach about weight loss all that much. I like if my goal, if I could get women to stop thinking about their weight, that would make me happy. If women could just accept themselves and love themselves as they are, what they are, then the weight a lot of times would come off because you can be beautiful at any size. It's just how you perceive yourself. And so that's really my goal. And so like with intermittent fasting, what I found, that's my means of delivering, my service and education to people. And it's
Yes.
a lifestyle and it's one that allows women to really be able to not think about food all the time and not think about their weight and just live their lives. We are, like you said, we're in our second act, like you said, right?
Hmm.
And that means that we are the starring role now in our second act. That first act, a lot of us were mommies or our careers and things. We weren't at the forefront, but now we can put ourselves at the forefront. And so that's really, to me, just if I could just get women just to put themselves out there, that would make me. I would have done my job.
Jill, I'm with you all the way.
Yeah.
And you use a word there that I like. You said starring role, because
Yes.
so many women don't see themselves as stars. And that's
No,
why I put this title here for the show, Leading Ladies,
I
because
love
to
it.
me, every woman's a leading lady. And
Mhm.
it has nothing to do with her race, her age, her size, her weight, or her money or education. Those are all the variables that come to be. But what happens with women, and you know this, Jill, because it's the women that you work with, we get to a certain age and our bodies shift and it changes and it drops and it does everything. You still have to dress that body to its best advantage. And
Mhm.
you're not as tight, taunt, and toned as you want to be unless you're going to the gym every day like J-Lo. God bless her.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have the time. Do you?
No, no.
So
And
that's
I don't wanna take the time, and I don't wanna take the time.
neither do I.
Right.
Not to that extent. But what
Yes.
I do want to do is always show up as at my best. And you
Mhm.
can only do that when you know your body. You
Yes.
understand your body. Now, you mentioned the number one. What are some of the other factors that you deal with when you're working with women to support them in the education of aging gracefully and going through this transition mindfully?
I think for a lot of them, it is that like giving them the permission to put themselves first, like we were talking about, giving them that it's okay, that if you ask for what you need. So, I just released an ebook called Sizzling Sex Starts in the Kitchen. So sex is on my mind, but that's an area that you said juicy, right? You mentioned juicy. But that's an area where I'm trying to get women just to assert themselves, and that's an area where I find that a lot of women don't. They've kind of taken this back seat to their husbands, back seat to their kids, back seats in the bedroom, wherever it is. So it's asking for what they need wherever it may be. And when they do that, and when they gain this control in their body, I
Yes.
think they're more willing to do those kind of, and to ask that. And so that's where I think they struggle. Yeah.
And the key is gaining that control in the body. And what you're hopefully, from what I'm hearing and what I know of you, you're teaching them that it's not about their weight, not
No.
to the extent that they're taking it. So that's a big, but let's talk because I was going to get to your book. You
Yes.
beat me to the jump,
Oh, well,
but that's okay. That's
can't help
good.
it.
Tell us first about the two books that you have out, and then tell us about this ebook, which I
Okay.
love the title. I
Sure.
just love it. So talk to us about the books and
Sure.
what.
So just real quickly. So I wrote my first book 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. No sweat. It's just menopause right
Yes,
there.
that is the
No
title.
sweat. It's just menopause, eating, exercise, and essential oils for a healthy change. And
Yes.
so I wrote that book after I had that experience with a doctor and I had gone home and I had done all of this research.
Uh-huh.
And the book focuses on what I consider like the five main areas that a lot of women, we're talking about those struggles. So it kind of is that whole hormonal where the hot flashes and the night sweats. We talk about natural solutions for that. That
Yeah.
was my big one. We
Yeah.
talk about libido and other things that women have issues with in the bedroom. We talk about aging skin.
Ah, yeah.
Yes, we talk about sleep and stress because that's a big factor. We take on a lot of roles, and we have a lot of roles and a lot of things we're juggling. And then we
Absolutely.
talk about empowerment in that book as well. And I just talk about how food, exercise, and I give specific recommendations for essential oils as well that can be used in all those areas. And then from
I
from
love
that.
that. I love that book, and I want everybody to get to Amazon and
Mhm.
get these books that Jill is talking about because they're fantastic books. And we're going to talk about her latest ebook. But continue, Jill. What's the
Yeah.
second book?
Well, and I want to say that, all of my books, I write like I speak, and so I say
Good.
it's very easy reading, and I take a kind of hard subjects and I think I make them very accessible and entertaining. And so my next book was Melt the Mid, and I released that last June. It was a year ago this past June. Melt
Uh-huh.
the Midlife Middle, a beginner's guide for women to the intermittent fasting and essential oils lifestyle. And what I did with that book is I took the 100 most frequently asked questions about intermittent fasting and getting started, and I answered them throughout the book. So the book is actually organized with the index that way. And I really focus, there's a lot of intermittent fasting books out there that are general for everyone. But as you and I have been talking, the midlife woman has very specific needs, very
Yes.
specific physical and emotional needs. And so her journey is a little bit different. And so I share that in there.
I love that. I tell you, what's really fascinating with this, you mentioned a part for most women that could probably be, and I'm asking you, their
Mhm.
number one concern. I have three names. It's the stomach,
Mhm.
it's abdomen, and it's the little tummy, or it's the belly. That's
Mhm.
a big issue for women, especially women who are going into that second act because they've had babies, they maybe not getting to the gym as often as they'd like to, and numerous other
Mhm.
reasons, health. So that's an area that most women are nervous and cautious about. You
Well,
found it to be so?
100%, and there's a physical reason for that is there's a drop in their estrogen, right? There's
Yes.
a decline in your hormones, and so that's part of the reason for the weight loss. But I always tell people we can't blame hormones for everything. So it is the fact, like you said, as we get older, we're less mobile, right? We're not moving around as much, and we're not. So there are a lot of factors that do go into that. But that midlife middle is definitely a big one.
I have found that to be the biggest major concern for the women that I work with and that I can connect with. But and it's for me as well. No children, no whatever, but the little belly, it just appeared there one day. And I said, where did that come from? Tell us about this ebook. I love the title because
So.
anything, sex sells any and every and all. And yet we can't talk about it too much, but we're going to.
There
Tell
you
us
go.
about
I
the
never
ebook.
in my life did I ever think I'd be on camera in front of people talking about all these subjects. I tell you, my children are just mortified. But but even my mother-in-law said, I couldn't share this one, honey. I couldn't share this one. I said, that's okay. But the truth is, it is an important topic for the midlife woman because people aren't talking about it. So in my private group and things, we do talk about this, and it's called "Sizzling Sex Starts in the Kitchen." How food can transform your lovemaking from midlife, mediocre, missionary to sensual and stimulating between the sheets.
Let me interject here for just one second
Mhm.
because I said earlier, I'm old school, old fashioned, and for me,
Mhm.
everything more or less is back in the day.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, one of the first things that I can recall my parents and my mother and my aunts saying that the way to a man, and you've heard this, everybody's heard it, is through the stomach. And
That's a
nothing
quote in my book. I wrote that because you're exactly right.
so
Right.
true, right? All right, continue. I think it's great.
Yes. No, so that book that's what I talk about. I talk about, the general connection between the two of them, but then I also go into specific foods for him. I start talking about foods that are not good, foods that can actually tank your date night. And then I talk about foods that are specifically good for issues him or her may be having. I talk about herbs, supplements, and essential oils that can be added to help some of those issues, but also just boost the fun. And then I also talk about kind of creative ways that you can use food in the bedroom, that can just lighten up things. And we're talking about women, and a lot of us are empty nesters now or don't have children in the house, so we can explore and we can be adventuresome, without the worry of somebody knocking on the door. And
Absolutely.
so
You
this is
can
the time for it.
experiment more and more and more. I
Absolutely.
tell you, Jill, time flies here. I'm going to ask you to step aside for just a brief moment. I'm going to
Okay.
do a quick intermission and I'll be right back with you. There's so much more I want to share with you, so hold tight. What can I say? Don't you love it? Who doesn't love talks that evolve conversations around food, around sex, around life and living the life and so on and so forth? I'd like to invite you to join me here in the Facebook group, Leading Ladies, Leaving Legacies. You would be a welcome addition, and I'd love to see you there because we have so much that's going to be shared with you over time. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier, women who are in their second act, in regardless of age, who are in leadership, they hire me to amp up their wow factor. And that's another thing that Jill works with in a different way. But we want to be spiffy. We want to be all that we can be, and we can be. And has nothing to do with your size, your height, your weight, and all of that. You can still be stylish and look great and have a presence and confidence that commands the room. And that's what I want to help you with. And by the way, type in the word style, STYLE, in the comments, and your book will be automatically delivered to you. How you can discover your signature style and stamp. It's beginning steps to discovery of your signature style and stamp because everybody's is different, and that's what we're going to learn. I want you to be thinking about all the things that are important to you and how you show up. And that's what we're going to be talking about if you're into leadership. But join the group because you would be a welcome addition, and I can't wait to meet you there. Now let's get back to Jill and to talk a wee bit more about Midlife Mojo. I love that name. Jill, what can I say? Midlife Mojo. How did you come up with that name?
I've always loved that word mojo, and it was funny when I came up with it. I had my parents both said, "What's that?" And I thought, "Oh, are people not going to know?" But mojo means magic, right? And that's what this time is. This is a magical time for us, and so for me, it just the midlife mojo just was a natural fit for
I
sure.
I love your language. I love the way you're expressing what you're about and the work that you do because magic is one of my favorite words. Magic, mystery, intrigue, all of
Ooh,
that.
yeah,
And I think women who are in their second act, regardless, have more magic than they're aware of. And it's up to you, me, and others who are on this trailblazing adventure to share with them what that magic might be. Tell
absolutely.
us what's in the future for you. What's coming up for you next?
Well, I am never one to sit still, that is for sure. So I do have a couple of things in the works right now. I do have a couple. I have one more book on my brain that I want to get out, and so I will be
Great.
starting working on that book that due out for probably I'm going to aim for that for next summer. But in the meantime, I know we've got coming up here. The whole well, first of all, with all COVID, a lot of people talk to me about they call it the quarantine 15, the weight they've put on during this time. And now we've got the feasting season coming up with the holidays. And so I'm working on a challenge to help people adopt the intermittent fasting lifestyle before the feasting season begins so that they can kind of be ahead of the game and that quarantine 15 doesn't turn into the holiday 30 pounds come January. And then they're going to really need you to restyle them.
A lot of elastic and spandex and
That's
all.
correct.
I think that's brilliant that you're going to be doing that. And also, tell people a little bit more about your Facebook group and how they can get to you. Let me put up your website here so that people
Sure.
can get to your website and then they can join your Facebook group, right?
Yes. Yep. So I have a wonderful group. We're just at almost 800 women now,
That's
all just very supportive women. And in there, it's called Midlife Mojo, and you can find it on Facebook. And every single Monday, I go live in there and I do a weekly education. Every Friday, I go live on Zoom, and that's for anybody that's very casual. That's you usually get no hair, no makeup, outside in my back porch, and that's for anybody just to get on and ask any questions they have about the intermittent fasting in their own journey and support one another. And then just all throughout the week, I just, it's a lot of interaction and just sharing of myself and encouraging and motivating and hopefully inspiring, women to just be their best.
well, that's what it's all about. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about, no matter what it is that you're doing. What do you find as far as the women in your group and the women who come to you? Do you find that it's word of mouth or they come to you because they see, hear about you and what you're doing and they know that they need it? Because sometimes people, Jill, they're a little bit hesitant. they don't want to speak up or say, I have an issue with this or I have a concern with this. Because again, aging for most women, they think that word that you used earlier about being invisible,
Hmm.
but it doesn't have to be that way. It should be the opposite. So, how do you get to and approach that woman? And you know her when you see her, who is hesitant about coming in and sharing with you that she really needs to know more about the process, the transition that she's going through.
I think I think people get to know me, especially in my group. I am who I am. They
Yeah,
know me there. And so I think because I show up for them, those kind of people, I tend to attract a lot of those people. I've noticed even when I had my Pilates studio and I did my live, I tend to attract a lot of people who maybe are uncomfortable going to, the woman who I always say, like, in Pilates, the woman who was like the perfect body, the tall, I'm not that woman, right? And so because I'm real, I think the real women kind of, find their way and they want to open up to me. And I have a lot of wonderful, wonderful word of mouth women who I just call them. They're my loyal followers, and they just share me all the time and talk me up. And
I love it.
I've been grateful enough to be lucky enough to have been invited to, events like this, being on podcasts and people like this to share my message. And I do hope that I make people feel comfortable, because that's always my first thing, is to really connect with somebody before I share all of this other stuff, because you can't talk sex with somebody you don't know, you can't. So
Well,
that's
some
my
people
goal.
do, but you don't. I
Yeah,
like to say that
yeah,
you're loyal and faithful, and those are the ones that you want to surround.
yeah.
Time just flies here, and I wanted to ask you a wee bit
Yes,
about your fasting because that's fascinating. But
sure.
the time flies here, so I'm going to leave that on the back burner. But I'm going to
Oh,
ask
good.
you for style. When you
Yes.
think about your signature style and how you show up, how would you classify your style?
Well, here I am talking to you. My 16-year-old fashionista would say I have none, but she has the best style. But that being said, I definitely. I mean, I've always been casual, comfortable. I mean, I've been a Pilates girl and yoga and that was kind of my 40s. But I turned 50 in April, and I kind of just want to take things up a notch. I like wear jewelry now. I never wore jewelry. I have a whole and things like that. So I'm trying to find a way to take that comfortable zone of mine and just make it a little bit more professional. And I bet you could help with that.
I'm going to help you with that. But let me tell you this. I love the way you phrase that because you said you're casual, but you want to kick it up a notch. And
Hmm.
I think I love the movies and Star Wars, the two of them, Star Wars and Star Trek, going over to the dark side. Too
Yep.
many of us who are casual have gone too far over. So what you want to do is just keep it casual and comfortable, easy, but a little bit more of a dash. And
Yeah,
that's what we're going to do together. No worries, because you
absolutely.
have your style. Everyone has style. But I love Emerald God. Kick it up a notch. That's what he says.
There you
So listen,
go.
time flies. I say that over and over. Tell us what you want to leave us. What words of wisdom, inspiration, motivational, what do you want to leave us with? And I'm inviting everybody to go to Jill's Facebook page and her website and connect with her.
I just want people to realize that, women, specifically midlife women, that you do not have to let society tell you what your midlife should look like. You don't have to let your doctor tell you what midlife should look like. Television, you can define your midlife. You can create that for yourself. If it means that you've got to do some of your own research and do some of that, then do it. If it means that you've got to step out of your comfort zone to follow your dream, then do it, right? Midlife can truly be the best time of your life, and just the time to find your midlife mojo.
I love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Jill, time flies here, but I really have wanted to do this with you for quite some time. I'm glad we were able to. I'm going to ask you again to step into the green room, and I'll be with you just shortly. I want to say so long to the audience for now. Thank
Thank you, and thank you, everybody, tonight.
Oh, indeed, indeed. Don't you love it? I do. I just love this interaction, this having a conversation with someone that you have the greatest regard and respect with. Leading Ladies, Leaving Legacies is all about you. You are the leading lady. Jill spoke to that several times tonight. I want to leave you a little tip when it comes to your signature style. And she mentioned so many pivotal, really profound points. But I want you to remember this about the weight thing she mentioned. There's no excuse for not wearing clothes that highlight you in your best light. There's no room for boring clothes. Too tight, too short, too long, too baggy. too frumpy, that's gone. If you're in that second act, second chapter, midlife mojo, it's time to amp it up a bit and get ready for your big time to showcase your memorable impact. And that we can do, and together. I'm always grateful to see you here. It's always good when you show up because I know how busy, that buzzword, we all are. But I thank you for being here. Whatever you do, take time to connect with Jill in her Facebook group, on her website, because you will find so much there that will benefit you on your journey. Because aren't we all on a journey? Whatever you do as well, be well, stay well, and do what they're telling us to do so that sooner than later we can all be out and about again. So until we connect, and we'll make it soon, stay tuned and be well. All the best. So long for now. Cheers.